So the Blues kind of suck. The Blues have lost 5 games in a row in regulation after winning their first 3 games of the regular season. They now sit at 3 wins, 5 losses, and 0 overtime losses for the season. The offense continues to be practically non-existent. The goaltending is just okay. I mean, it's pretty good, but, still not quite as good as it could be. And the defense is pretty much in the same boat. I don't have, any notes or anything for this episode. I usually am a little bit more prepared for this, but I kind of feel like just ranting for 20 odd minutes. Bit of a change of pace. But I think it's the best way for me to get my feelings out there and express how I feel about the state of the team and, all the rumors and should we trade this guy? Should we fire this coach? I don't know. It'll be an interesting episode regardless. I don't want to say fun because I don't know quite how fun this episode is going to be, but let's just jump into it. Make sure you stay tuned.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Locked On Blues podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network and your number one source for Blues content as always. I'm your host, Josh Hyman. This is your first time joining the show. Well, you certainly picked an interesting time to join because you might just be here to laugh at me. Maybe you're here to see what my thoughts are about this disaster of a season so far. But either way, thanks for showing up. If this is not your first time to the show and you're coming back, thanks for making Locked On Blues your first listen. Thanks for making me part of your daily routine. You can follow me on Twitter at Josh Hyman NHL. You can follow the show on various social media accounts and tons of episodes to go through in the past. Hundreds and hundreds of episodes that you can go listen to. If this one's not your speed, if you want something a little more upbeat and positive, let's stop beating around the bush. Look, I said I don't have 3 segments prepared. That's kind of a lie. I do know generally what I want to talk about. I got a couple things. So I want to talk about who is responsible for these losses. Just sort of what I've seen gone wrong as a whole. So that'll be the first segment. Second segment is going to be about some individual players. And it won't all be that bad. I think there have been some players that have had a pretty decent start to the year that are playing fairly well. So it's not going to be just a completely down negative episode. And then in the third and final segment, I'm going to be talking about Craig Berube. A lot of people are saying that he should be fired, and probably just because that's what worked in the 2019 season when the Blues got off to a similarly bad start. Then they fired Mike Yeo and brought in Craig Berube and won the Stanley Cup and, Cinderella story, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, let's just do it. First segment. What the heck has been going on here? The St. Louis Blues opened the season 3-0. Didn't look perfect by any means, but they looked like a good team. They won games in a couple different ways. They won one game by scoring a lot of goals. They won another game by, battling it out, winning in overtime. And then they won another game by playing really good defense, getting really strong goaltending, and, pitching a shutout, getting a nice 1-0 win, 2-0 with an empty net goal. And at that point, I felt like, man, this team has shown that they can win in a multitude of ways. That's like, what you want to see early on in the regular season. There's still stuff to iron out. The offense was inconsistent at times. The defense was inconsistent at times. The goaltending, like I said, has been good for the most part, but still not great. But I think the goaltending's been the least of the issues for the St. Louis Blues. But just like the offense, the defense, it's been just okay. That's probably more of a result of just the overall play of the team and less of a result of the goaltenders in general. I think Binnington and Greiss have done a great job with what they've been presented. You could look at the game that they lost, what was it, 7-4, and you could say, okay, maybe if they got better goaltending then they could have won, but at the end of the day, I feel like it falls more on the defense. The special teams has been bad. It really just feels like I'm just listing off things that have been bad. It's kind of because I am. Look, 3-5, it's not the end of the world. We could be sitting here a week from now at 7-5 or whatever. They could go on a nice win streak and we can put this all behind us. But right now it looks really bad. Lack of compete is something that I saw got thrown around a lot by the front office and Craig Berube, and I think that's really what it comes down to. It just doesn't feel like the Blues are trying that hard. At the end of the day, that's what I think the best way to sum it up is. It's like, you look at that 3-on-0 with Jordan Kyrou, and I think it was like Kyrou, O'Reilly, and Shen maybe. I don't remember. But I know it was Jordan Kyrou. Jordan Kyrou has the puck on his stick on a 3-on-0, and you just don't get a shot out of it. And it's like, I feel like the team, like everybody pretty much, is overthinking a little bit. Especially, once you get into a slide, you start losing a couple games, you start kind of forgetting what you've done in the past to win, especially early in the season. It can be very difficult if you go on a losing streak like this. It can be very difficult to put yourself in a good headspace and say, like, okay, we know how to win hockey games. Here's how we've done it in the past. Here are the changes we need to make. But with this group, all you have is a small 3-game sample size of like, okay, here's what we did to win. But it's pretty easy to I guess, lose focus of that. And I think that's something that the Blues have been very guilty of, is just losing focus of the things that they've done right this season, few and far between. And I'm worried about the long-term implications. I said that the goaltending has been just okay. And that was meant to be a compliment to the goaltending. But if the team continues to play this poorly and Jordan Binnington loses confidence and loses faith in the team in front of him, it could be a disaster, because if and when the team starts actually playing better, if Binnington's confidence is cracked a little bit, if his confidence has diminished, if Greiss's confidence has diminished, then these 5 games have done irreparable damage to the season. I don't think that's going to be the case. Let me just make this clear. Okay, 8.5 minutes into the episode, I don't think the Blues are going to be in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes because of these 5 games. I still think there's a playoff team in there. And I know, I can't believe I'm saying this like with this little confidence 8 games into the season, but I still do think there's a playoff team in there. I don't think the Blues are nearly as bad on paper as what we've seen out of them through the first 8 games. However, there are some very, very worrying trends that we have seen that aren't exactly just like snap your fingers and fix them. It's going to take some time. And I think the Blues, at best, until they work that out, are going to be about a 500 team. But they have the potential of being a much better team once they figure those things out, once they figure out the effort and the cohesion, and they figure out how to play better in front of their goaltenders. So, yeah, maybe goaltenders are giving up 5 goals in a night, but you look at the shots against and the opportunities against, you're like, okay, yeah, the goalie struggled, sure, but did Binnington or Greiss even have a chance in this game? And oftentimes the answer is no. So are the goalies struggling? A little bit. Have they still been the best aspect of this team? Probably. So it's like you gotta change something quick, but fortunately it's early enough in the regular season where it's like, we might not even remember this 5-game losing streak a couple months down the road if we're lucky. If things work out, if the team gets back on track, fortunately the rest of the division The rest of the conference has had a pretty slow start as well. It's not like the Blues are really far out of it anyways, but they need to get their heads screwed on straight soon. They have a ton of games in a short amount of time. Second half of the regular season, and even starting now, they have a lot of games in a short amount of time. So it's getting close to that do or die point where 3-5 is manageable, but you struggle again over these next few games. You're looking at like a 5-10 record or something that bad. You don't want to keep digging this hole if you're the St. Louis Blues, and I have a few thoughts on what they can do to make sure that doesn't happen. So I'm going to be doing that in the second segment, as well as focusing on some individual players and what I've seen out of them and whether or not we should be concerned, all that fun stuff. Before I get into that, I want to tell you guys about our good friends over at betonline.net. Now, it is like the perfect time for sports. It is my first or second favorite time for sports, either now or when the NBA and NHL playoffs are going at the same time. But right now, you got the NFL regular season in full swing, the NBA season just getting kicked off, the NHL season getting kicked off, the World Series is happening. You look everywhere you go, there's great sports on every single night. There's not a dull day in the sports world, and with that comes the perfect opportunity for sports betting. And betonline.net is your number one source for all things sports betting. They have every single odd wager line you could think of: golf, UFC, MMA, boxing, of course, hockey, football, all the big ones. Like I said, they got a lot of fun World Series prop bets. They got a lot of good futures bets. And it's not just sports betting on betonline.net either. They also have, sports news. You can check the scores on the website. They got sports podcasts on there. All your sports information, not just betting, can be found at betonline.net. I always like to say, put your money where your mouth is. If you got a hot take, I love spitting out hot takes on this show. And the best way you can back up your hot take is with financial receipt. Put your money where your mouth is. Check out betonline.net right now. You won't regret it. And we'll be right back with the second half of today's episode. Okay, so the Blues are bad. Let's look at the who and the why. Start naming some individual players. Jordan Binnington has been good. I know I said in the beginning of the episode that the goalies have been just okay. But Jordan Binnington has been good. And he is not getting the support that he needs, which has led to him sort of looking just okay, giving up a bunch of goals in games and stuff like that. But overall, it's just a matter of the defense isn't playing well in front of him. He's not getting any sort of goal support. Same with Thomas Greiss. I think Thomas Greiss has been a little shakier than Binnington. But neither of them lately have been getting the goal support they need or the defensive support they need. So not really worried about them. Jordan Kyrou. Let's just do it. Is Jordan Kyrou's contract a huge mistake for the St. Louis Blues? Are they going to regret this signing? Blah, 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 blah. No. I think Doug Armstrong had a really good quote this morning where he said, "I'm not going to judge the next 9 years off of the first 8 games." And I think that is spectacular. Jordan Kyrou has struggled in these past 8 games. He has, I believe, only 2 goals and 0 assists. He has been hemmed in a lot. If you look at the advanced stats, Corti and all that stuff, it looks bad. It looks like he's been a non-factor out there a lot of the time. However, he's still getting the scoring opportunities. It's not like he's invisible out there. It's not like you don't notice him out there. It's just you notice him and then it's frustrating. It's not like I hate to, bring up Tarasenko just to throw shots at him, but it's not like a game where Tarasenko is invisible, where he's literally invisible, where you really don't notice him and you can't really discern him from a third or fourth line player. I think Jordan Kyrou is still noticeable out there. He's still getting plenty of, as Craig Berube has said, grade A scoring opportunities. He's just not converting, and I think it's just a matter of him maybe honestly trying a little bit too hard at the start of a new contract. I think he just needs to stick to the basics. Go with what comes naturally to him. He's facing tougher competition because I think he's either first or second on the team in ice time. Up there with Robert Thomas, used to being down there, getting less minutes, so maybe fatigue is a factor. I think he's just trying a little bit too hard. The opportunities are there. That's why I'm not super concerned. It's not like he's regressed into like a plug, a third or fourth line guy. Opportunities are there. Just needs to convert, 1 or 2 of those missed nets turns into a goal, or one or two of those bad decisions turns into a pass that leads to an assist, and all of a sudden Jordan Kyrou's got double his point total on the season. I think he'll figure it out. If he has a down year this year, well, then you got 8 more years to hope he rights the ship. But that is not at the top of my priority list in terms of players I'm concerned about. And honestly, individually, I'm not really concerned about anyone like more than anyone else. You look at Robert Thomas and he's been fine. Vladimir Tarasenko has been pretty good. Ryan O'Reilly's been a little underwhelming. And then you say like, okay, Colton Parayko has been a little disappointing, but like at the end of the day, I could list off 75% of this roster and name guys that I'm disappointed in. And it really just comes down to team chemistry as a whole. I think if and when the Blues right this ship and something clicks, they flip a switch and guys start playing better, I think every single one of the names that you could list in terms of playing disappointing will get better, because I don't think it's an individual issue at this point. I think it's a team-wide issue. I think it's the young guys aren't quite ready for the scheme yet. You look at Torpachenko, you look at the new additions like Achari, and it's kind of apparent that they're just a little bit a step behind, and it takes time to gel, it takes time to mesh. And then you look at the defense and you say, it feels like it's okay, but you look at the way that the defense started last season and you're like, okay, this is kind of par for the course for the Blues and their defense. That it'll click eventually. It's a little bit of a difficult scheme to master, and the pieces will fit into place. And you look at the forward and you say, okay, maybe they're trying a little bit too hard, they're pushing a little bit too much, let's jumble the lines. Like, I feel like these changes all feel like they're fixable. It's not like I don't look at anything that's been going wrong with the Blues and think like, okay, they're screwed, this is the Blues for the rest of the 82 games. Now, fixable doesn't mean like it's overnight. I think it's going to take some time. I think it's going to take some line jumbling, and I think it's going to take some time to build. Once you find lines that work, it's going to take time to build that chemistry. And that's the difficult thing is you've dug yourself a hole now, and it's going to take some time to dig yourself out of it. However, I think if and when the Blues do dig themselves out of that hole, a lot of these worries about these individual players like Kyrou and O'Reilly and etc. are going to be nullified a little bit. I think Kyrou is still a tremendous player. I still think he's like the future face of the St. Louis Blues alongside Robert Thomas. We cannot judge the future of his contract after 8 games. Now talk to me at the end of this season and we'll see if then it's actually time for concern. But as of right now, there's no single player on this team and I'm like, oh my God, they are dragging this team down. If Jordan Kyrou just played better, the Blues would have won against the Kings or something stupid like that. Like, no, it is not an individual problem at this point. It is a team-wide issue. It is a chemistry issue. Something's got to give. Something's got to give, because this team is not this bad. Is this team maybe not quite as good as we all thought? Maybe. Is this team as bad as we've seen over the last 5 regulation games? Heck no. So it's about finding that healthy medium. We still haven't seen what this team is capable of yet this year, at least from a positive standpoint. Unfortunately, we've seen what this team is capable of from a negative standpoint, and when this team is at their worst, my God, are they bad. But we have yet to see this team at their best, or even at like their half best. So we'll get there, hopefully. It's just about weathering the storm, and in the meantime, expressing criticism, rightfully so, but staying rational. We're only a couple weeks into the regular season. If the further this goes on, the more concerned I'm going to get, and the more concerned we should all get, rightfully so. But in the meantime, it's just like you gotta just bite your tongue and be like, you know what? If the Blues come out and win this next game, and they win their next 2 games, they're at 500. That's not great, but like it's not being at 500 is not as bad as the team has looked over the last 5 games. Put it that way. The Blues have not played like a 500 team over the last 5 regulation games. So if somehow, some way, we are a 500 team, the Blues are a 500 team in the next 2 weeks, that is an absolute win. It gives them more time to figure this out. But in the meantime, it's like, what the heck do you do to figure it out? And I don't know. I know I've been rambling. In this upcoming third and final segment, I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room, Craig Berube. Everyone's talking about, let's fire Berube. We got to get rid of him. Bring in a new coach, just like we did with Yo. And I don't know. I'll get my thoughts on that. Make sure you stay tuned. Be right back. All right. So I've kind of danced around like, who is the problem? And a lot of people on Twitter are either pointing at Jordan Kyrou, who I've already said I don't believe is the problem. Is he a problem? Yeah. Is he the problem that's causing the Blues to lose games? Not at all. I've said it before. I think Jordan Kyrou, his performance is just a manifestation of what the team is struggling with as a whole. Because Jordan Kyrou is off on this new gigantic contract, he's going to be under a microscope, but there isn't a single player on the team that isn't suffering from the same issues that Jordan Kyrou is. Like I said, he's just magnified because should be the best player, second best player, third best player, whatever on the team. So yeah, I'm not worried about Kyrou quite yet. And then you look at, okay, if it's a team problem, like I've been saying, if it's the whole team, then you look towards the coaching staff and you say, all right, maybe they need some new direction here. And should the Blues fire Craig Berube? No. Doug Armstrong agrees with me. If you missed the press conference this morning, players have been told that Berube's not going anywhere. The fans have been told that Berube's not going anywhere. And I like that. I like the confidence that they have in Craig Berube. I don't think he's the issue. He might be, but I don't think he is. I think he is... The Blues are getting good scoring chances, and these games are winnable. The games that they've been losing are winnable. It's like they've played so poorly, the Blues have, that it's like, man, if only they played like average in 3 of those last 5 games that they lost, they might have won a couple of them, and it's like, this team is not this bad. So you can't look at Craig Berube and be like, oh yeah, it's all his fault, get rid of him. Because like I said, it's a personnel issue. It is a team-wide issue. It is something in that locker room or whatever, something amongst the players is just causing them to not be engaged, not be competitive or whatever. Could that be fixed by a change of voice, a new head coach behind the bench? Maybe. But we know Craig Berube's system worked. We know that Craig Berube's system works in a variety of teams. It worked with the grit and grind Blues of 2019. It worked last year with the offensive heavy Blues. And the roster is built to Craig Berube's favor. But this is, don't take this as me saying, oh, Craig Berube should be locked up forever. It's sort of similar to what I was saying about Jordan Kyrou. It's just too soon to tell where the blame falls. And just early in the season, the Blues have been so inconsistent, and so many different things have gone wrong, whether it's the offense disappearing, the defense springing a leak, or goaltending not quite being up to par. It feels like every game that they've lost has been something a little bit different. And that's why I don't look at the coaching staff as like, okay, these guys are the issue. Because if it was one thing the whole time, if it was just the Blues haven't been able to score all season, which, to be fair, that's honestly been like their biggest issue, is their lack of scoring, but it hasn't been their only issue. If it was just one glaring issue where it was like, yep, this is it, this is what the Blues need to fix, then you look at personnel. Then you say, okay, the special teams coach needs a change, or the defensive coach needs a change. It's just everything, which makes me think there's just some disconnect, some disjointedness in the team, and that change comes from within, I should say. I just think it's too soon for rash decisions. That's all it comes down to. Berube, Kyrou, O'Reilly, Binnington, entire defense. You can't put the blame on just one entity in this team this early in the season. Now, I could change my tune a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, whatever, and look back and be like, man, the Blues should have gotten rid of Berube when they had the chance, or the Blues should have traded Tarasenko or O'Reilly when they have the chance, whatever. But I don't think that's going to happen, because this team is too good on paper. And stop me if this sounds familiar, aka 2019. I'm not saying they're going to win the cup, but this team is too good on paper and has shown minor flashes that are good enough to let me know that there's no way they should be this bad. Like, this is really bad. I think I saw a tweet that was like the last time the Blues lost 5 straight games in regulation was like 2016 or something ridiculous like that. Like, this team should not be this bad. And it's like, something's got to give. The team's got to wake up collectively, have some sort of players only meeting. I don't know. Something's got to give. I'm anxiously anticipating the next game, because if this 5-game losing streak turns into 6, then we got a different issue. Or you know what? They don't even have to win the next game. They just have to show up and try and show that they're capable of playing competitive hockey, because we have not seen a competitive hockey game from the St. Louis Blues in a minute. And until we do, you can't judge what the heck is wrong, because it's like, well, if they're not being competitive, then how do you know where the issue lies? It could be anywhere. If this team has a real issue, it will manifest itself when the players just show up and start working harder. And I'm sitting here, on camera telling professional athletes to work harder. I know. Who am I to say? But it's like, to me, it's just what it feels like. It feels like, how the heck can you point out where this team is struggling, what this team needs to improve, when like you're just not even seeing anywhere near 100% effort, you know? Maybe at 100% effort, the defense will still be bad or the offense will still be bad. But until we get that, how are we going to know? You know? So I don't know. This episode was very rambly, and I made a lot of points and contradicted myself, and it was all over the place. I know. Appreciate you bearing with me. Literally just spewed my thoughts out here for close to half an hour. Hopefully I resonated with some of you guys, or, you know, maybe you disagree with me. Either way, let me know on Twitter at Josh Hyman NHL or Locked On Blues. You can let me know in the YouTube comments as well. I love getting your feedback, whether it's constructive criticism or just nasty criticism or compliments, whatever it is. I want to hear from you guys. That's the whole point of having an online community. So just let me know what you guys are thinking. Is this season a disaster? Should the Blues trade everybody? Should Craig Berube be fired? Should Jordan Kyrou be essentially AHL? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. Maybe that'll give some clarity to whatever the heck I'm thinking of, because I still have no idea what to make of this team this year. So this was a fun episode, all things considered. I always like the off the cuff, heart on the sleeve, just blabbering for 20 straight minutes episodes. It's always a fun way to get my thoughts out there. Look for some more structured episodes later in the week when the Blues have some games and stuff. But that being said, thank you all so much for listening. Make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you're listening to me on. That way you never miss a new episode. You can follow Locked On Blues on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Blues. You can follow me on Twitter, like I said, at Josh Hyman NHL. Thank you all so much for listening, as always. And like I said, let's go Blues.